Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something super important. Why doing the right thing in business isn't just a nice idea, it's actually a killer strategy for success in the long run. We're going to break down just how critical ethics are for building a company that actually lasts.
All right, let's jump right in. There's this one big idea that pretty much rules the business world, and that's reputation. You can think of it like the currency of trust. And believe me, it is way more fragile than you might think.
And this quote from Warren Buffett, it just hits the nail on the head. He says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. Think about that. Decades of hard work, building all that trust. That's your most valuable asset. But poof, it can all be gone in an instant. That's the tightrope every leader is walking every single day.
So this leads us to a really tough spot that every single leader finds themselves in. It's this constant tension, right, between just following the law and actually doing what's right. And that choice, it's way bigger than anything you'll find in a law book.
Okay, so on one side, you've got following the law. That's just the bare minimum, right? The baseline the government sets. But then, on the other side, there's doing what's right. That's all about ethical responsibility. It's about being fair and just, even when no one's looking, and even when there isn't a specific law telling you what to do. And here's the kicker. A company can follow every single law to the letter and still be deeply, profoundly unethical.
So what are business ethics anyway? Well, the best way to think about them is like a moral compass for the entire company. And it's not some fuzzy, vague idea. It's a real system of beliefs that actually guides everything. A company's values, how its people behave, and all those critical decisions they have to make day in and day out. And you see these decisions happening on 3 different levels, but they're all connected. First, there's the individual level, the personal choices you and I make. Then there's the organizational level. That's the company's culture and policies. And finally, you've got the societal level, which is all about industry standards and what we expect from businesses as a whole. And when ethics start to crumble, especially at that company level, the whole thing can just come crashing down. And if you want to see a real-world example of what happens when ethics just completely fail at the very top, well, we don't have to look any further than the classic cautionary tale, Enron.
See, at Enron, the leadership team, they didn't just bend the rules. No, they built an entire culture of deception from the ground up. They knowingly hid billions of dollars in debt, massive losses from their own investors and employees. And they did it all while paying themselves millions. This wasn't just some oopsie or a simple mistake. It was a total and complete ethical collapse.
And the fallout was just devastating. It created this huge ripple effect. We're not just talking about financial losses here. Thousands of employees lost their jobs, their entire life savings. Investors wiped out. The executives, they ended up in prison. The deception was so massive, it even brought down one of the world's biggest accounting firms, Arthur Andersen. That is the real-world cost when leadership is unethical. But okay, thankfully, that's not the only story. There is another way to do business, a path that actually builds incredible, lasting value by looking at more than just the bottom line.
And this other path, it's really rooted in something called stakeholder theory. The idea is actually pretty simple. A business isn't just responsible to its shareholders, the owners. It's responsible to everyone its actions affect. We're talking employees, customers, the local community, even the environment. They all have a stake in the game.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Just think about this for a second. If a company's factory pollutes a river, who are the stakeholders? Who gets affected? I'll give you a hint. The answer is a lot bigger than just the people who own stock in the company.
Well, first, you've got the local communities who depend on that water. Then there's the wildlife, the whole ecosystem. What about other businesses further down the river? Their operations could be totally messed up. And you can't forget the company's own employees and customers. A lot of them don't want to work for or buy from a company that's so irresponsible. See? All of them have a stake in what that company does.
And this is exactly where a company like Patagonia just totally nails it. They've built this massive, successful brand by putting this stakeholder-first, values-driven mission at the very heart of their strategy. For them, caring about the environment isn't just some marketing ploy. It is the strategy.
So here's the main takeaway. Operating ethically isn't just about playing defense, trying to avoid being the next Enron.
It's actually a really powerful, proactive move. It's a strategic advantage.
Think of it like this. Taking unethical shortcuts might get you a quick win, but it's usually a dead end. A long-term ethical strategy, that's what builds real, sustainable value over time. It's basically the difference between running a sprint and running a marathon.
And the payoff in the real world? It's huge. Having an ethical culture isn't just some nice-to-have thing. It is a genuine competitive advantage. You attract and keep the best people. You build a brand that people trust. You boost loyalty. You even pull in investors who care about social responsibility. All of that, it leads to real long-term financial success.
Okay, so we've looked at the risks of getting it wrong and the rewards of getting it right. Now, it's your turn. Let's talk about how you can start applying these ideas and really thinking like a leader who has to face these kinds of challenges.
So, to get ready for your first assignment, you're going to take everything we've talked about and apply it by thinking through 3 key questions from your module.
Okay, here are the questions. First, in your own words, what's the real difference between business ethics and simply following the law? Second, I want you to find a recent, real-world example of a company whose brand got hammered because of poor ethics. And third, explain how good ethical practices can actually build stronger relationships with all those different stakeholders we mentioned earlier.
And as you're working on that, I want you to keep one final thought in mind. A business strategy can be brilliant, it can be efficient, it can be super profitable. But a sustainable strategy that doesn't have ethics at its core, it's just a strategy without a soul. So the real question for you is, when it's your turn to make the big decisions, what's going to give your strategy its soul?